So everybody should be able to see my screen. The topic of our webinar today is go to the lake while AI does your work. So AJ and I decided we were going to dress up and have a little fun for this webinar. It is August. It is the summer. So I'm ready to go do a cannonball into the lake. How about you, AJ?
Absolutely, like I did last week.
Awesome. We had a little team offsite last week, and it included some cannonballs into the lake. So that, by way of introduction, is me introducing AJ, who is our Director of Innovation at Techify, and I'm super excited to have him joining me today for our webinar, our latest AI webinar, talking about, hey, how could we maybe get a little bit more free time while AI does our work for us?
Absolutely.
Welcome, AJ.
Happy to be back.
Awesome. All right. So just so I don't hit myself in the head with my inner tube here, I'm going to toss that on the floor. Before we get going, so like our normal webinars, our goal here today, 35 minutes of content. We want to kind of get in, get out, give you all sorts of useful stuff. And then if you have any questions, you can post them in the Q&A, in the chat, whatever you prefer. We will stay on as long as we can afterwards and answer those questions. We're very committed to providing a whole whack of value, but not stretching out a half an hour of content into an hour-long webinar, which is my personal pet peeve that I see sometimes when I join webinars. So before we get started, usually in this space, we will say, hey, here's our next webinar. But our team of teachers and AI education enablers is coming up with a fantastic plan for the coming school year. So for September to June, we're putting together a great plan for webinars and what we're going to do moving forward. If you have any feedback on what you would like us to touch on, feel free to pop that into the chat. The other thing Hugo's going to do is pop up a little poll question so that we could get your feedback. We're looking for open-ended responses here. If you could delegate something to AI, it could just be one thing. What is the one thing you would like to delegate to AI? I'd like to crowdsource some examples here, and we'll circle back based on the answers in a moment. I'm just going to put an answer and put an answer for me. Okay, good. So the next thing that we just wanted to touch on, we have, so for 3 years in a row, we've done a AI transformation summit in the spring. It has been so well received, and we've got such great feedback. What we're doing is bringing it back by popular demand, and we're introducing a fall version of our AI summit. This one is going to be a little bit more. If the spring one was AI 101, this is going to be a little bit more AI 201. This is going to be going a bit deeper, figuring out how to do things like we're talking about today, delegating to AI, how to advance your company's AI roadmap, how to advance your capability around adoption, all that sort of stuff. So we have just put up the registration page. There's a QR code to that. That funny looking guy there and that picture is me with my I Love Claude shirt from our last one. Please register if you're interested in it, or reach out to our team if you have any questions about what it is and the value of it and all that sort of stuff. So let's do a quick check-in. Did I give enough time for people to answer on the poll side of things? Looks like I did. Okay, so if you could delegate something to AI, what would it be? Here are some examples. Email was the most common thing. It looks like people want to deal with email. We may have a bit of a solution for that today that AJ is going to show us. Presentation building, charts, graphs, unnecessary meetings. Ooh, what if you could just have like an AI bot show up to your meetings? That would help us go to the lake, right? We had actually, you know what? We had 1, 2, 3 different responses for different types of responses for meetings, and a lot of charts, graphs, presentation building, that sort of stuff. So that is great feedback. Thanks, folks. And we are going to get going and get moving here. So here's our challenge. Hugo, I think I'm right on target on time. You gave me 15 minutes for the intro, and I think I've nailed it. So here's our challenge, folks. Where we are right now. This is the world that we're living in. Just over 19% of Canadian businesses now use AI. Right, it's tripled in 2 years. So this is according to Stats Can survey they did in Q2 of this year. So very recent, from April, mostly the month of April. They did lots of people, lots of businesses using AI. According to Canadian Federation of Independent Business, another survey that they did in February this year, 60% of Canadian small and mid-sized enterprises are using generative AI to complete tasks. So there's lots of, we're seeing lots of adoption, right? Lots of use of it. Further, people are saying, hey, they're gaining 2 hours for every hour that they spend. So they're gaining more than twice the amount of time that folks invest each day. So this is why people are using AI, right? Probably not telling you anything that you don't already know. But here's the issue that we want to address today. Most people are still just chatting with it. They're just chatting. They're just talking to it. So if we're just talking to it, like, why does that matter? Well, we really want to look at, can we chat? Can we move from chatting to delegating? Can we have it do stuff for us as opposed to just talk to us? Because if you're chatting, you're doing the work with help. If you're delegating, the work comes back done. And it's a super, like, we think it's a super important concept here. And that's what we wanted to focus this webinar on. And we had the fun little topic of, since it's the summer, let's go off to the lake and let's delegate to AI so it does its work for us. According to Microsoft, their work trend index, there's been a 15x growth in AI agents at work year over year, 2026 to 2025. So there's a lot of people that are deploying agents and sort of working into that agentic side of things. And then thankfully, 86% of people are treating AI as a starting point, not the final word. So when we talk about delegation, when we talk about anything in terms of AI, we're still talking about it with a human in the loop. It's so important that us as human beings, we're delegating, but we're not abdicating, right? We're still involved. We're asking AI to do things for us, but we're making sure it's correct. We're reviewing it. We're overseeing it, right? That's adopting AI the right way. All right, so let's get it. AJ, are you ready for the meat of our discussion today? We're gonna go into 3 ways to delegate to AI. But first, it's important to think about the mindset side of things. If you think about AI as a tool, you're not going to get the most out of it. Think about AI as digital labor, right? So think about, you've got your traditional org chart. This is human labor. Where we're evolving to is everybody on the org chart has digital labor that's reporting to them. So we're thinking, if we think about, hey, how are we going to deploy our digital labor from an AI side of things? We're not thinking about SaaS applications and stuff like that. We're thinking about, we have job to do, we have work to get done. Are we going to use human labor for this, or are we going to use digital labor for it? So really today is about, here are some ways that we can use digital labor. Here's some ways that we can delegate to digital labor, right? And so here are 3 ways to delegate to digital labor. AJ, are you ready?
Good to go. Absolutely. Right. So we have a couple of examples here. We're going to look at Copilot. We're going to look at Claude. We're going to look at ChatGPT, and all of them kind of do the fun stuff. But let's start with the big one, the one we love, Claude Cowork. So what's the difference here? Chat versus Cowork? Well, Chat is for your thinking partner and your advisor. It's cloud-based, mobile app, browser, desktop app, and it runs over there. Everything is done manually. You need to feed it files, and it's step-by-step prompting. Everyone knows this one pretty well. Some of us have chats that are 11,000 lines long, which it's not supposed to be. Enter Cowork. So Cowork is there for operations and project management. There's a desktop app. It can reach your local files. It's got direct access to your computer. It can start and stop processes, and it does everything autonomously. You build the rules, it executes. So let's look at that use case, which I think everyone will love. This is one of mine that I've built, and it's just for me. So this is a little, it's supposed to start autoplay, but it doesn't. This is my little executive assistant. So here's what it does. This will triage your Outlook. So we've all got plenty of mails that we need to deal with. This connects directly into Microsoft 365, fetches your entire mailbox, goes into Microsoft Teams, sees anything that you need to reply to. It connects to all of these different sources. It even picks up your to-do items. One of the beauties here, the way that I have it set up, it will check my calendar. And if my calendar has anything that I should be declining because it doesn't deserve my attention, it will propose that to me. It won't decline on my behalf. That's still a step that I need to give permission for, but it will look for examples where it doesn't need my attention. Calendar entries without agendas, we all hate those. It will tell you which ones don't have agendas, and it will propose that you decline those and maybe send a response. It will even draft replies, and it will tell you on your mobile phone, Claude has done the work. Now you just need to take it from there and send those emails.
Awesome. So that's it. I think that's a really good example of how you deploy digital labor. A lot of people brought up email. Email is obviously an issue for people, and if we can get AI helping us to manage inbox overwhelm, that's awesome. And I think it was really interesting to see how many different data sources it's pulling from there, and the actual capabilities of it. So let's keep moving along here.
Right. So then there's ChatGPT work mode, which you can think as an alternative for Claude. Cowork, it kind of functions in the same way. And we have a little bit of a video clip of that as well on the next slide. So this is it connecting directly into your browser itself. So a disconnected data source, as long as it's got access to your browser, it can do things. In this example, we are submitting an expense report. So we were in San Francisco, and now I need to submit my expense report. But Claude or ChatGPT doesn't have a direct connection. It can plug directly into your browser and perform actions from there. So do you see the little purple cursor? That is ChatGPT at work in your browser. But then there's the next giant, which is Copilot Cowork. And what I like about Copilot Cowork is it works so well with your existing Microsoft 365 tools. So it plugs into that suite. I don't think this one is playing either. Oh, there it goes. So in this example, we're trying to launch a new product for a fictional company called Zava. So because it's connected up to all of your 365 tools, it's going to go fetch data from your Dynamics. It's going to go fetch it from Dynamic Sales. It's going to bring everything together and deliver you a product. It's going to deliver you the work done. So instead of you slogging away and doing all of that by yourself from these disconnected sources, it's going to pull it in. It even works great in Teams. So it will post a message in Teams about the results that it's created, the output, which that's what everyone is looking for. And that's exactly what we're seeing on screen right now. Project plans connects right on in.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this is it runs like the speed at which this is running. So it's creating this brand new website and create the project plan and then the website, and the speed at which it's going through other data. that video was pretty fast. And you can see, as AJ said, it's even posting this stuff into Teams itself. I want to just see if I can go back to this part of the slide. So this was really quick, and it went over this really quick, but these are the different data sources it's pulling from. And that is key when you're sort of differentiating between that chat and the coworker, the delegating side of things, that it can go and fetch information in these different places. And so I could give another example of what I went through this for a staff meeting we had this week. I needed to create a presentation, and I wanted to put into the presentation the results of our annual offsite that we held last week, and talk with people. So I had an agenda that was in my email. I had our sort of company vision, which was in a different application called Stretty. There was some information that was in SharePoint. So I asked it to go and do all these, fetch all this different data, put it together into a PowerPoint presentation, and present it, and then I was able to sort of iterate back and forth with it. And it's fantastic when you have all these things set up and interconnected.
Yeah, those data points are really important. So here's some common workflow things that all three of them share. First, tell it what you need. As you would with an employee, just tell it what you need. What outcome are you looking for? And more detail, the better. Then the agent builds the plan. You're involved, but the agent builds it. And then next up, you will check your connections. You will make sure that your agent can actually connect to the data sources, which you will allow it to connect to. And then it executes and delivers. You approve the permissions. It gives you an output that you asked for. Based upon that, number one, what was the outcome that you were looking for?
Okay, and now, AJ, you sort of gave this away a little bit early on, but we gave 3 options. If somebody had to pick what option to use right now, what would you say that they should use?
Well, I have a favorite, and Brendan's got my T-shirt, but I also love Claude because Claude is just the best. So why pick Claude then? Well, it's the most advanced model we have today, flat pricing. So you set the individual limits. Once you've got your team on this, you can set the limits on everything. It works on desktop, mobile, and web, and all 3 of those interconnect with one another. And it has the homework to prove it. It's got the receipts. It does the best in the benchmarks, meaning it is the most mature engine available right now. It just is the best.
Ooh, we're already getting security questions. I like this. I can't wait. All right, we're gonna come back to some of those questions. Let's get through how to set it up.
Absolutely. So first things first, everything happens with a business license. So get your team onboarded into Claude Teams package so that you can control everything from a centralized point. Next step is grant access to your files and apps. And like the questions that we just saw come in, be explicit about it. What do I want to give access to, and what do I not want it to do? And this comes up in the next step, which is setting the guardrails. You want to explicitly tell your agent what are you allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. My engine and my agent can draft emails, but it's never allowed to send. I don't even give it access on the permission level. Then pick the right model. Fable is good for planning, long-term planning. Fable is excellent for that. Opus on the execution layer, and Sonnet for general writing. And then poor old Haiku. Haiku might be the smallest engine, most efficient. If you want to do something, instead of doing a Google search, use Haiku. It's very good at finding data really quick. And then make sure you don't run this on a potato. It needs to be run on proper hardware. This can be quite hardware intensive. So make sure that you've got the right computer setup for this.
And I think that last one is a really good point. We've gotten a whole bunch of support requests into our service desk with people saying, hey, I tried to set up Claude Cowork and it's not working. And then we'll look at their computers. and the functionality of their computers, the power of their computers is not there. So you want your team to adopt AI. You want them to be using AI, but you have to think about core technology type of stuff, like what's the quality of the computer that our folks have.
Exactly right.
Okay, so and that lends to, if you're sitting there thinking, well, all these things sound really complicated, and we're starting to see some stuff getting added to the chat, which we're going to circle back to, some great questions about IT blocking things and that sort of thing. We have to look at this. We can't do it ourselves, right? I feel like maybe this is a picture of me trying to create a new dock or deck at the lake. Oh, build a dock. Yeah. So, you know, some of these things are hard to do. Some people know they have the skills, that sort of thing. But trying to do it alone can lead to a bit of a disaster. So we want to make sure that we've got knowledgeable people, knowledgeable partners to do it, because turning it on is pretty easy. Creating the capabilities easy, doing it safely is the hard work, and that's the job. So if we think about a safe deployment, what are sort of the 5 things that we need to do in order to safely deploy digital labor and safely deploy digital labor that we can delegate to? Well, we need to do a security and permissions review. And so IT might rightfully block this because security and permissions are not up to date, but then IT's responsibility is to get security and permissions up to date to enable folks to use this kind of technology. Number 2, we can only use business licenses, shared licenses. If people are doing individual licenses, personal licenses, even free licenses, that's horrible. We don't want to do that because we're giving access to our data. So if there's a personal license that you're reimbursing, or even like a pro license that somebody's got on their own that you're reimbursing them on their expenses or something like that, that's a no-go. You don't want to do this because that's an account your team owns individually, not the company owns. You do not have control over that. You can't put the proper things in place. We need an AI policy. If you don't have an AI policy, that's a blocker. Don't go any further. Let's create a really good AI policy so people know how to use AI and know what to do. And then we have to look at the usage limits and the oversight and understand how people are doing this. It can't be unmanaged. So if we're going to delegate to digital labor, just like if we're going to delegate to people, there needs to be proper management and oversight practices in place. And if you don't have that capability, if you haven't figured out how to do that yet, you do not want to do this. And then we got to make sure we're training our team on what are the real use cases. Like what AJ just did. AJ spent a bunch of time with different members of our team, helping us understand how to use co-work and have it manage our inbox. And that sort of training is super, super important to this. So, and then that brings us to the message that we try and get across on an ongoing basis. In order to do AI transformation the right way, we need to look at how we adopt and the process around AI adoption. And for us, it always comes back to strategy, structure, and people, and those 3 areas. And it's so important to remember the 80-20 rule, which is that technology delivers 20% of the value and the other 80% come from how the organization adapts. So as leaders, we all need to make sure that as we're implementing, as we're adopting AI, that we put in place the structure to create adoption. So many people just look at AI like, you probably have 800 different salespeople contacting you every week saying, hey, I have an AI tool to do this, an AI solution to do this. They're selling the 20%. They're not looking at the 80%, right? And so that 80%, that's the people stuff, that's the change management, that's how the scaffolding that you put in place, that all that sort of stuff. And here's just a quick reminder. Here's what it looks like. On the strategy side of things, it's creating that technology and data strategy. It's identifying those use cases. It's building the roadmap. It's making sure you have a proactive IT approach. Sorry, that was a little fast. We got so much stuff here that we just want to tell you about that I'm just flying through it. So we want to make sure that we have those things from a strategy perspective. We have those places. So we have the plan, we have the plan from a technical level, as well as the plan from a strategic level and from a workflow analysis level. Then from a structure perspective, we got to make sure that we have a 3-month implementation cycle. So what's the flywheel that you're going to run on a consistent basis over the course quarter to quarter to make sure that your AI adoption runs smoothly? We have to have an AI policy in place. It's important for structure. We've got to make sure that we're analyzing the adoption data and how people are going, how people are doing, what they're using. There was a Microsoft survey that came out, or a piece of research in the last couple of weeks, that talked about the number of licenses, the number of Copilot licenses that are in use, but the number of people that are actually using those licenses on a weekly basis is like a fraction of the total licenses that have been deployed out there, right? So analyzing that adoption data is so important for success. And we need to make sure that we have best practices, auditing, and alignment on an ongoing basis, so that we're guarding against issues. We're making sure things are aligned to best practices and doing well. And we have to monitor and train. We have to monitor both people. We have to monitor agents. We have to have that oversight. And on the people side of things, it's important to have somebody leading the charge with your AI transformation. So we call that an AI transformation strategist. We've got to have a digital workforce manager that's actually doing the work, the technical work, creating the agents, managing the agents, deploying the agents, that sort of stuff. Having a success team in your organization, super important. And making sure that you have the cybersecurity expertise is another critical piece. So let's, maybe we should give, AJ, should we give some more examples? Well,
sorry, I muted myself, but yes, let's continue.
Problem.
Let's see it work. So here's a good example of just a general prompt that can really get you going. What we're trying to do is check my inbox, check my calendar, flag anything urgent, look at the week's meetings, and tell me what I can skip, tell me what I need to prep for. This will go a step further, even in the same chat, where you can say, oh, I do have this meeting. From these set of documents, help me prepare for that meeting. Maybe you've got a RFP out there that you need to prep for. This is perfect for that, because it's going to read all of your data, going to set your priorities, and here we can see that we're scheduling. This is my favorite part about it. You can now schedule this. And it's not a schedule that only runs once. You can make this run multiple times a day, and it will keep track of what it's done, what it hasn't done. So that's a really important part, and I feel this is one of the most effective ways to use, especially the co-work front.
Yeah, and I think it's an easy place to start. It's a good use case to get going on right away, right?
Exactly right. So here, yet again, we're going back to that message, and here it's already generated, so we can see exactly what the output is. In this example, this is actually Hugo's prompt and running on Hugo's system, not mine. But you can see the output here. You can see what's important, what's not important, and what needs to get done right now versus what can wait.
All right, I think those were great examples. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we sort of mix a combination of the overall strategy with here are some use cases, here's what it sort of looks like. And when you think about that overall strategy, make sure that you have we all want to have an AI roadmap. And when we have an AI roadmap, we want to make sure that we have an assistant strategy, we have an agent strategy, and a custom AI strategy. And we help people come up with the overall the business case, right? And it's important to look at, so hey, when we deploy assistants, for example, it's potentially deploying all this digital labor can cost some money, right? So we want to do that analysis and understand the potential ROI. So we've created something for folks that we call our Techify AI appraisal, or Techify appraisal with AI capitalized, because we're smart that way. And so what we've been doing over the last number of months is we've been helping guide people through an evaluation of where AI can create value. And we'd be happy to provide anybody on the webinar that would like to go through this process. We go through this guided evaluation. We pinpoint blockers, security gaps, governance issues, help you identify some use cases for your business, and help you develop that high-level roadmap for where to go. And we'll do stuff like we'll go through our ROI calculator that'll give you a bit of a sense of what the opportunity is from AI in your environment. So if you're interested in that, please, there's a QR code there. You can always reply to any of our emails, send us a note, and we can help you out with that. So we're going to pop up some feedback. We're also going to go, love to give you feedback on the webinar. So as we said, our goal is between 30 and 35 minutes of content. We've nailed it at 33 minutes. And now happy to answer questions. There was a lot of stuff that we went through quickly there. But what we can do is we can dive in a little bit more on the question front. So I see a few questions. I see 3 questions so far have popped up into chat. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so that you don't have to look at a black screen there. So first question, I think we've got a couple security questions and then a hardware question. So this sounds like all in your bailiwick here, AJ. So first question from Laura. My IT is blocking some of these connections due to security concerns over MCP servers. Any advice for security concerns? We primarily use Claude. What do you think, AJ?
Very, very good question, because that is everyone's concern, to be quite frank. I think it's very important for IT to vet the connections that you're making, and then to be very explicit about what that connection is allowed to do and not allowed to do. Generally, reading everything is really good, but writing anything might not be something you want. And then generally, these connections, very important to them, is on the connection side itself. What permissions does the actual user have? So if I have very broad permissions to things I might not and should not be able to see, the MCP connector will just allow that to happen. It will not stop me from reading the data. So it's very important to have that correctly set up. Good example, Microsoft 365, if your permissioning and groups on your SharePoint is not properly set up, it might return data that you're not supposed to see. So that's very important that that particular policy side is really well worked out, because for privacy concerns, obviously, you don't want any confidential data to leak out there.
Yeah, and I think the other bit of context that I would add to this, IT's job is to guard against risk, right? But IT's job is also to enable. So Laura, if IT is blocking these connections and doesn't have a plan that they can communicate about how to enable folks to better use Claude, then I don't think IT's doing its job in that sense. Because what there should be is, okay, so here's what we're blocking it right now because SharePoint permissions, to use AJ's example, SharePoint permissions are not good enough and we're worried about the risk of that. We will be reviewing, updating, changing, putting in place dynamic permissions or whatever into SharePoint over the next month. By the end of the month, we will be able to come back with you with a recommendation for how we will enable enable adoption of using Claude more effectively, different connectors. We'll put together a list of connections that are allowed and that we're comfortable allowing, that sort of thing. But there's a risk here, or there's a concern I have, that sometimes IT just says no because it's easier. And maybe in your organization, they don't have the resources to do the kind of work that I just mentioned. Maybe they don't have the knowledge to be able to identify the real security risks, and that's fine, but that's something to explore. And just saying no is not an appropriate answer to me. And so I'd push back and say, where are we going from here? Nick piped in a question about it. Is this actually safe to do? I think, AJ, our answer would be, is it safe? It depends.
Yeah, it does. It does depend, and it kind of comes back to Laura's question once again. It can only do what you give it access to do. But because it's connected to these different systems, you need to make sure that those are also set up correctly and that you're following good practice and best practice policy. So once again, directly back on what Brendan said here, they're there to support and there to make sure to cover off the risks. So that is exactly correct. Also, in your prompting, though, build in the explicit if you're not sure if it's safe. Tell it what it's allowed to do and not to do. That always helps because that's the guardrails that we spoke of.
Awesome. Okay, next question. So what is the right recommended hardware? So Adnan's looking for spec detail. AJ, maybe you want to give a little bit of an overview. I don't know if we're going to be able to spec out particular machines, but maybe some key things to look at when doing an overview of it.
Absolutely. So what you're looking for, if you're going to be using AI on any system, it needs to have an NPU. NPU is it's a graphics processor in plain English. That's what it does, and that's what AI runs on. So either a dedicated graphics card or an NPU built into your CPU is really good for AI work. And the second thing is memory. So Microsoft recently upped their standard for what is acceptable on a computer to use AI. We are now up to 32 gigabytes of memory. So that is what I would call an acceptable spec, and that's also our standard, is at least a machine with an NPU or a dedicated graphics card and 32 gigabytes of memory.
Yeah, it just a heads up, this is going to cost more. And so what we're seeing overall, the cost of computers is going up because of the demand for the different parts and processors and graphics cards and all that sort of stuff. The cost of all these things is going up these days. So the cost of computing is going up. And then if you look at it and say, hey, we need a higher spec machine because we need it for AI, the challenge for all of us as business people is our cost of machines are going to be going up. And if we don't understand that and don't understand why, it's going to create some frustration if we don't communicate that to the CFOs and the CEOs of the world and that sort of stuff so that they know. Then they're going to be, why are you sending me a quote for a $3,000 computer? We don't need a $3,000 computer. We need a $800 Best Buy computer, right? And it's going to create some tension. AJ, what do we need to know about our data that we want AI to access?
Another brilliant question. First off, is it secure? Is the structure modern? Have we implemented that modern SharePoint structure or modern data structure? The data needs to live in the cloud. So for AI to be able to reach it, it needs to live in the cloud. So SharePoint is a really good place to put your data, and it's a really good place for either Claude, Chat, or Copilot to reach that data. So, but the security structure here is the real important part. You want to make sure that that is locked down and watertight. So that's my answer that I would give, is make sure that the data is has the correct security structure. AI is really good at figuring out chaos. So if the data is a little bit chaotic, that's okay. That's also something I would remedy, but security first. Let's make sure that people have the correct permissions on the correct files.
Yeah, I think we could do a whole session about dirty data as well, and the challenge of data being all over the place, and data not being organized and effective, and stuff like that. Okay, two other questions that we have, and then we're gonna sign off. One question is, do you use Whisperflow or other such software, and do you recommend it? So Whisperflow is a voice to text AI software that Laura's asking about. I can say there's lots of people that are using different tools. To us, and AJ, please add on to this. We're more comfortable if things are within the environment you're already running in. So if you're running in a Microsoft environment, every additional tool that you add outside of that Microsoft environment does create some risk, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And to your point, Brandon, just be where my concern is not necessarily the tool, but where your data goes is also important. Where it's being obviously sent to Whisperflow itself. So be observant about that, because there's privacy concerns. What are they doing with that data? What are they doing with your voice? Because it's obviously your voice being used, and we all know that's a little bit scary. So I would proceed, but proceed with caution. Do a bit of reading about what do their security policies actually say about how your data is being shared.
Yeah, obviously we don't know what Laura's using or her company's using it for, but there's stuff that's built in with Claude where you can speak to Claude directly. There's things that are native on the phones that you're using that won't send the data anywhere else, or will keep it within your iCloud or your Google environment or that sort of thing, that can be used. I use voice notes on a regular basis on my phone. Those can be translated into Claude really easily, that sort of stuff. And then we use Teams and the transcription within Teams when we're running meetings. We find that pretty effective. Okay, last but definitely not least, Anna asked a question. We currently have an AI policy in place, and it covers the principles of responsible AI, ethics, legal compliance, transparency, privacy, security, fairness, human oversight, monitoring, training, incidents, vendors, and documentation. Any suggestions for what else we may add? Perhaps operational uses. Thanks. So that's a great question, Anna. To properly answer that question, we probably need to look at your actual AI policy. Looking at it, it sounds like it's pretty detailed. It's pretty comprehensive. The thing that I would sort of test it at is there a good combination in your AI policy between what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do? Sometimes people look at these AI policy documents like, this is all the stuff you're not allowed to do. And so it's just as important for them to say that these are what you're allowed to do. Here's what the assistants that we use. Here's how to ask for an assistant license. Here's what maybe these are examples of operational uses as you suggested. I don't think an AI policy needs to have use cases, but use cases should be available somewhere. So a use case, for example, is, hey, when we run meetings, we transcribe them using Teams, or use Claude Cowork to help manage your inbox. So you have documented use cases that say, here are different ways, because some people will do the exploring and coming up with different ideas and testing out things. Some people need those ideas and use cases to be shown how to use AI. All right, awesome. Whew, AJ, that flew by.
Absolutely.
That was amazing.
To the lake with us.
Yes. So everybody, please get your AI sorted out. Grab your floaties. I hope you enjoy the rest of the summer and you get You have a good summer. I hope you've learned a lot from here. Appreciate the feedback about the session. And everybody have a great day. Thanks for joining me today, AJ. This was a lot of fun.
Really, it was. Have a wonderful day, folks.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.